Good afternoon. So, I am going to talk a little bit about how exciting the future is. I'm going to talk about Google Glasses, and I'm going to talk about autonomous vehicles. And I say the future, but actually I'm fibbing really, because this technology is mature, this technology exists today. So we're going to start off with an example of something where it might seem like I will be the last customer for it. I'm sure you've heard of Google Glasses. This is, its official title is Project Glass by Google. And they've already extracted money out of a lot of people who have pre-ordered their Google Glasses. They're coming early next year. People have spent $1,500 for a block of glass with an engraved number in it, which is their number of Google Glasses coming off the production line. I'm just going to show a quick video. I'll audio describe it for the people in the room with a vision impairment. And we start off by watching through the eyes of the person who's wearing these Google Glasses. Now obviously this is a demo video, but it's going to be very indicative of what you see when it comes out. So, okay. So we see a person, they're stretching in the morning, a row of icons has come up on their heads-up display, they're pouring some coffee, a reminder comes up that they've got an appointment this evening, they look out of the window, and image recognition tells them they're looking out of the window, and it shows
meet me in front of Strand Books
the weather
at
forecast.
2.
And now he's sending a text message by voice. He's out now, and he's heading for the subway, but it says it's
Oh
closed.
man, really?
So that's using GPS as well as image recognition to know where he is and to give him that information on the heads-up display. And it's giving him walking directions so that he can now go an alternative route. Cut out the middle bits now, so because we're very short of time.
Cool. Take a photo of this.
He loves this graffiti on the wall. Takes a
Sure,
photo
it's
by saying, "Take a photo." Now he gets a pop-up reminder that we saw before that he needs to meet with someone virtually. He makes the call.
Hi, what's up?
His
Hey.
face pops up on the screen.
You want to say something cool?
Yeah, sure. Is that illegal?
Yep. Okay, here goes.
And he shows her the ukulele by sharing his screen view with her. And he's on top of a building and she can also see a lovely cityscape out there. Really, really exciting stuff. I'm going to tweet, as soon as I sit back down in the audience, I'll tweet the links to these videos using the hashtag EverybodyTech, which is the hashtag for the event today. So don't worry about the fact that you missed a bit in the middle there, and don't worry about going to have to find those on YouTube yourself. So that's really, really exciting. Now, why am I, as a blind person, excited about it? Well, my iPhone, I know we've been having a lot of mentions of iDevices today, but they truly have revolutionised a lot of people who otherwise couldn't have afforded the bespoke technology. So we saw GPS there being used to tell someone, to know where someone was and to give them information. A talking GPS device for a blind person, the cheapest one was £750. Now there are dozens of fully accessible apps that do the same thing if you've already got a smartphone that talks to you, for example. There was the mention of Braille earlier, and whilst an iPhone will never have Braille integrated into it, that's not what we're actually advocating with Everybody Technology, but it does have built-in drivers for the majority of Braille displays out there. So you could pair a Bluetooth Braille display with your iPhone, and there you have that Braille note-taking device that would have cost you £2,000 before. We also saw in there image recognition, so they looked out of the window and the glasses could tell that they were looking out of the window, so it offered them some weather for that day. We also saw image recognition when he went down the street and he was about to go into the subway, for example. So just imagine as a blind person, okay, we wouldn't be able to see the heads-up display, but to have a pair of eyes in the form of that camera that's built into the glasses with us wherever we go, intelligently being able to identify what you're looking at and giving you information about it. On the sheet of paper that should be in your packs, which has got the top X, I think it's 10 apps that AbilityNet wanted to sort of flag up. In there, there's things like VisWiz that can tell any image that's on the internet by doing a quick search. So if you snap a photograph of a product, a barcode, a QR code, or just the packaging, then it'll come back and it'll tell you what it is. There's another one in there called Money Reader, where you don't even have to take a photograph. It does the real-time recognition of money just by waving it under the camera, as we've seen in Project Glasses, where you're getting real-time image recognition, and it gives you that information. Where it would be really exciting, and where it would mark it out as an everybody technology product, would be if it had speech output as well as that heads-up display for people like myself who can't see. You all saw the video recently of Felix Baumgartner jumping out of the hot air balloon, highest freefall record. Now, he had a heads-up display like that, but he didn't have that backup of that alternative output option of speech output, for example, which we would argue is reasonable in a technology of that kind to make it an everybody product. And as a result, as he was plummeting to Earth, the visor misted up because of his breath and the cold, scant atmosphere outside, and so he couldn't see any of his instruments. So what would you do if you're plummeting to Earth and you can't tell how high up you are? He pulled the cord. He pulled it very early because he just wanted to be doubly sure that he pulled it in good time. As I would too. But as a result, he got the highest, but not the longest free fall because he wasn't able to pull it at the time that he was hoping that he would pull it because he couldn't see his instruments. So that would be an example, an example perhaps where it could have saved someone's life of having alternative outputs in a real everybody device. If we could bring up the emotion one. Another aspect, thanks. Another impairment category might be someone with Asperger's or autism, where we've already got software that can do real-time emotion recognition. So you've got a camera built into your glasses, it's looking at whatever you're looking at. We all know that smartphones can do facial recognition, they can spot a face, they can autofocus on it, they can even recognise who the face is to be able to unlock the phone, for example. So here, you would just build in this, and then it becomes an everybody device for that category of people as well. So on the heads-up display, it will say, so-and-so is not very happy, perhaps you ought to change the subject, which is a real and everyday issue for people with autism or Asperger's. So this is the sort of approach that a diverse persona model would look like. We heard just a minute ago about how it's really difficult to design for everybody. At Ability, our approach is to have a number of personas. We've got 11 core personas that don't just reflect the standard demographics that you'd think about in persona models, young, old, rich, poor, familiar with technology, unfamiliar, have a lot of time, don't have much time, and we've woven into those a range of different impairments. And we've got another 4 that are sort of more extreme cases to take it up to 15, and that's what we would advocate as being core to the approach of everybody design. So, other things that you could build into that device, on the list there we've also got iVoice, which is a real-time translation package. So for people, and the voice recognition package, so for people who are deaf, Google Glasses would be an absolute boom, because with the built-in microphone, we know there's a microphone because he said, pause music, and he also dictated a text to someone or a message. Then that microphone could be listening to people around him, talking to him, do the recognition, and then put subtitles up on the heads-up display, instant subtitles for people who are deaf. Now, we don't know because the product isn't out yet, but if the microphone that's built into it is only sensitive enough to hear you and other people a few feet away, then it won't be an everybody device. It won't be inclusive, because you hadn't thought about, what about those people that, where it needs to pick up people around you that are talking as well, so it wouldn't work in that situation. Similarly, for people for whom English isn't their first language, which is a quarter of the population, you could use the built-in translation of iVoice or Say Hi. There's a whole bunch of them that would do exactly the same thing, but the subtitles wouldn't come up in English, they'd come up in your language, for example, using Google Translate. So the options and the possibilities for people right across the spectrum of impairment and need are huge, where everybody technology approach is employed. We'll finish off by looking at Google, another Google product, as it happens, which is autonomous vehicles. Now, don't start it. Okay, sorry. I was lucky enough to be speaking at a conference in Vegas a few months ago. Nevada is the first state in America to actually make autonomous vehicles legal on the road, so you could actually see vehicles moving, as we'll see in a second, without any driver in at all. For the last 2 years in the States, the Google Street View cars have been driving autonomously. They've always had a driver in the seat. Otherwise, it would freak people out. I'm not sure how people in Nevada are managing at the moment, but it is legal to drive them completely autonomously in Nevada. I wish I'd have been able to grab hold of one, because I'm very excited about this development as well. And in those 2 years, they never crashed once. So this is, again, mature technology. The only incident was where somebody else rear-ended one of their cars. That wasn't their fault. So let's run that VT, please. Again, I'll describe what's going on.
Autonomous labs, crowd missions. How about autonomous taxi?
So I'll audio describe someone outside a hotel. This has been edited. You can see the full video online. They're using an app on their tablets to call the taxi. They can see the taxi coming on the app on the tablet. Then you see the taxi coming out of the car park on it by itself, and it's got the gadget on top, which is the LiDAR, the combination of radar and lasers. And then it approaches the chap, and he gets in, and it drives off autonomously. I don't know if it's in the back, I can't remember. I don't think I've asked people that. But anyway, it's doing the driving. So, have a look at that full video online. I'll tweet the links in a moment. Really, really exciting. And it's here today. And this is Berlin, and there's going to be a fleet of them in Berlin very, very soon. So, how would that be everybody technology? Well, obviously it's hugely empowering for a whole range of people, but the key thing here is that it's not aimed specifically at disabled people. Just like Project Glass, it's not aimed specifically at disabled people. If it were, it might not be half as functional as it would if it was aimed as a mainstream product, and it might be 5 times as expensive. So it's a mainstream product, and I personally, if it's added on to the price of a standard car, if it's like an optional extra, I pay an extra 5 or 10k, so that I could use the car as well as my wife. So what would make this an everybody product? Well, again, think of diverse personas. What about if that iPad app, or it's probably a Nexus 7 actually, because it's a Google demo, but anyway, so that tablet, if that app isn't accessible, it doesn't speak to me, you can't have increased text size for people with a vision impairment, etc. It's not a simple enough interface for people with a cognitive difficulty, then they can't call one. So, they wouldn't be able to take advantage of that fleet of taxis. So that's one area where, people might not necessarily have thought, but they would if they were thinking in a diverse persona approach. When the car comes, are there going to be wheelchair accessible versions in this fleet of taxis? If so, if not, then wheelchair users can't take advantage of the autonomous fleet. When you get in, is it going to speak to you as you're going along? For example, for blind people to say, we haven't got there yet, and then we've stopped, but we're just at traffic lights, so don't get out. So things like that, which there are a number, but it's not rocket science, and this is what the message is trying to get across. Do what you're doing, but think about diverse personas, because in many cases it's just thinking about things from their viewpoint, and those tweaks, the gain in the microphone, the ability to have speech output on Google Glasses as well as heads-up display, the ability to have the dashboard speak to you as you're driving along, are little tweaks on the grand scale of things, but could make that from a product to the 80, which is the norm, and that number's falling, by the way, with the aging population, to one where it caters for people in the high 90s. So one final closing comment. We've had mention of fridges and various TVs and various other products. We would argue that you could make products as dumb as a toaster, everybody technology, because the vast majority of products have a chip of some sort. Even your toaster's got a chip in at the moment. And whilst it's not reasonable to build in speech output or a braille display or to be able to operate it by a switch for people with severe motor difficulties into your fridge or your microwave or your toaster, we would argue that it is reasonable, and it's an everybody technology approach, to build into that chip, into that brain of a very dumb device, the ability to interface with a very smart device, like a smartphone. So I can't use ATMs. There's a vanishingly small number of ATMs in the country that have speech output, for example. So I have to ask somebody next to me, which is a very difficult and potentially hazardous operation. And it would be unreasonable to expect every ATM manufacturer to put speech output into an ATM. But it's not unreasonable for them to have either a Bluetooth or an NFC chip in there that does communicate with a smart device that you've already got. And that smart device could speak to you, or if you've got a braille display connected to that smart device via Bluetooth, then you've got braille on every ATM in the country. So that's the approach we're advocating, and that's the sort of area that we're going to discuss and investigate in great length in the Everybody Network that we're calling people to join today.